Welcome to the IDP Plus Advice Show. Today we're going to discuss IDP news and notes, including Week 3 preseason takeaways, impact of roster cuts to 53, and oh yeah, you might have heard about this big IDP trade that happened. But with that, let's get started. All right, welcome everyone to another IDP Plus Advice Show. We're glad to have you again this week. Our numbers keep on growing in terms of views and comments and so forth. Glad to have you on board. If it's your first time, welcome. I think you're going to enjoy the information you learn. I am Ricky Rodriguez. You can find me on X at RickyRod66, and I'm joined today by Sean Teague once again. You can find him at Sean8386, and we have a very, very special guest. Another member of our IDP Plus family, Johnny Christoffi, better known as Johnny Freaking Fantasy. Johnny, we're glad to have you with us today here on August 29th.
Glad to be on, man. You guys, like you said, Ricky, you've been popping off. I had to come get some, so glad to be a part of the show tonight.
All right, that was some bad word choice, but we're just going to move past that pumping on stuff. Okay. We're thrilled to be with you today. We've been going through the preseason news and notes, and that's going to continue. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to talk about what happened in Week 3. We're going to, from a preseason perspective, there's lots of movement from a roster cut perspective, and that has implications to who's going to be starting and who won't be starting. And then there was that Micah Parsons trade. And of course, if you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can catch us on the IDP Plus YouTube channel where you're looking at this. You can, or listening to it as well, or you can catch us on Spotify. And as always, you can leave your questions and comments, as several folks have been doing on this IDP Plus YouTube channel and show that Sean and I have been responding to. Well, gentlemen, let's go ahead and start off with the Micah Parsons trade. Of course, Parsons was traded to the Packers in exchange for Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. Sean, I'm going to start with you with this one. Does this help, hurt, or keep Micah's value neutral?
No, he's one of the elites in the league. Like, it doesn't. I don't think it matters where he goes. He's going to be the top dog no matter what. Doesn't hurt him. Got some young guys in the AFC or NFC North now with JJ McCarthy. You got Jared Goff with a very questionable line in front of him, and another young guy, Caleb Williams. There, he's going to feast on this group just as much as he was feasting on the East.
All right. So, Johnny, first question you get to answer, man. With Micah Parsons sitting out all of this preseason, of course, he's standing on the sideline or laying down on a health bench or whatever. We saw Nick Bosa when he held out a couple of years ago, or maybe was it last year, lose track of time, and how he got off to a much slower start. And he even indicated that his slow start was impacted by sitting out. Any concerns about Micah Parsons getting off to a slow start?
You know what? I like him. I prefer him to stay in Dallas. That's not the case anymore. So I do think there is a little bit of hit, when it comes to the tackle marker. We'll see when the rubber hits the road. Nothing's set in stone, but I think they brought him there to be that pass rusher. So that's going to be the focus for him. So if you had him in best ball as a first overall pick, second overall pick, I do think it does not help. It certainly does not help. I don't think that things could really get any better for Parsons as far as the sacks and the tackle production. Like I said, I think they're focusing on him for the sacks. So I'm a little bit concerned in that department, in the tackle department. But I think the sacks will be there still.
So, Johnny, you cheated. You managed to avoid my question, which was, do you think he'll get off to a slow start? Or you seem a little bit concerned, but will he get off to an even slower start than
I think production-wise, but not health. Not health. I'm not worried about health.
Okay, got it. Sean, you agree?
I think it'll be okay. It's important to remember, like, these first couple of weeks are basically the extension of the preseason. So just about everybody's going to be kind of slow starting off. I don't think we will see him dip the way Nick Bosa did a couple of years ago. I think he will come out of the gate pretty hot.
So I read an article on The Athletic, and it talked about the fact that there's been players such as Zach Martin, who sat out and had an all-pro season as an example. And then they had like Nick Bosa, who started a little bit slower. So they had several examples on both sides of the fence. The difference in this case for me, and why I worry about a little bit of a slower start, is the fact that he's actually changing teams and changing schemes as well. Now, granted, getting after the pass rush is pretty easy, but there's other parts to Johnny's point about, well, is there a short-term impact on tackles and things along those lines because of the new system and all? So I'm expecting a little bit of a short-term dip, but not significant when we look over the whole year. And remember, he had 12 sacks last year. He missed several games with that high ankle sprain. He came back even partially injured. So 15, 16 sack most likely for Parsons this year. Let's talk about the impacts to Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness. Sean, I'll go to you and Rashawn Gary first. And Johnny, guess that means I'm going to come to you and Van Ness in a second. So on Rashawn, what do you think? Any impacts to him? Do you think it actually helps him and we should be bumping him up our rankings as we're getting ready for a redraft season?
Surely it would help because they're going to have to double, maybe triple team Parson. So that's got to leave Gary open on the other side. But they did lose, a little bit of meat there in the middle with Kenny Clark being the other part of this trade. So I still think Gary gets helped. And dude's going super low, super late in a lot of drafts. So he should be climbing up. This should be kind of a, they're going to sharpen each other here on this, I would think.
So where do you have Gary? You have him as a edge 3 now, or you have him as an edge 4? Where do you have him?
Yeah, he's going as a 4. I think he should be climbing up to the 3s, and we've seen what he can do when he does have those big games. If he could just put an entire season of that together, for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened yet. We could see career year for him as well, assuming he stays healthy and all that too. So climbing up to a 3 with potential to be a high end 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. Johnny, Lucas Van Ness, former first round pick. Feels like he's getting the shaft on this one.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I think, the thing that hurts him is both of these guys were here for the sack. So to Sean's point, Mike is now going to take some attention away. You're there for the sacks. You're not there for the tackle. So I think it helps Gary. But I think you're right. Van Ness, it probably still needs to be drafted late, but I'm losing hype there too as well.
Yeah, I think Van Ness is going to lose a lot of snaps on this. Parsons isn't going there to, I think, play 30% of the snaps. So I think Van Ness will be the rotation on number 3 behind those two. From a dynasty perspective, I think he takes a real hit. Now, Edgerrin Cooper, last Packer I want to talk about here. Does this impact him in a negative way or a positive way, or no change? Edgerrin, because they were kind of using Edgerrin Cooper in a lot of different ways that Parsons may end up taking that role. Any concerns, Sean, on Cooper?
No, because like I said, now Micah Parsons commands 2 or 3 guys. That leaves somebody else to go after the quarterback. So now you can throw Cooper on that same side or opposite side, however you want to go about it, or right up the middle. If the guys are shifted to Parsons, there's a lane there to come through. So now you can send Cooper on some blitzes or Walker, either one of them, and we may see an increase in sacks for one, if not both those guys. This is exciting for this entire defense, actually.
Yeah. So Sean, no concern about the defensive coordinator. Actually, his reputation was rush 4, press man, etc. And I think they rushed Cooper a little bit more because they didn't have that pass rush on the side. So you're not concerned about them backing off on some of those Cooper blitzes, it sounds like.
No. Like I said, if anything, it boosts the chances of him to be able to get those sacks, I would think. We're still looking for him to be a top 8, 10, 5 guy, whatever number you want to go with. We're expecting him to finish in the top, and I don't think this hurts him a bit.
All right, good. Let's shift to the Cowboys side of things. So their actual initial depth chart came out today, and they had Dante Fowler and Sam Williams as the starting ends. They had Marshawn Nealon and Donovan Ezeruku as the number 2s. So, Johnny, in terms of looking at those 4 Cowboys defensive ends, Do you want any of them in redraft? And if you do any of them, which one is it?
Immediately, no. I don't think that I'm going to dip my hand there. Especially in shallower leagues. If I have to go deep, probably the upside. Probably Nealand is who I'd be taking. But at the same time, I'm not. None of these players are Micah Parson, so I'm not really expecting too much. Let other people. It's a mess. You have a 25% chance, maybe 50% chance to get it right. If two of these guys can kind of, but bottom line is, I don't think one of them is going to be Micah Parsons. They're going to split it all four ways, and I just don't want to play that game.
Okay. Sean, feeling the same way? Still nodding your head, yes.
Absolutely. Dante Fowler had double-digit sacks twice. One of them was last year in a different system on a different team, so I'm not chasing the old man there. Nealon looked good at times last year and then disappeared. Williams, I don't know. They look good in the middle with Odigizua and Clark, so maybe these guys hit home, but trying to figure out who it's going to be each week is going to be a nightmare. Like Johnny said, it screams rotation.
Screams rotation, screams stay away. I don't argue. I don't have an argument with you guys. It'll be interesting to see if Izuruku, the highly thought of rookie, as we get towards week 12, week 13, start to get near our playoffs, if this massive light bulb goes on and he gets some productivity for us, not expecting a number one or number two edge player, possibly a number three. We'll have to keep an eye on that. All right. So Kenny Clark, the last one I want to talk about. You just alluded to him, Sean, in terms of he'll be now next to Osa Digaziwo in defensive tackle required leagues. Sean, where have you been seeing him go off? And do you think this bumps him up or keeps him neutral?
Probably neutral. He's actually going undrafted in just about every defensive tackle required league I'm in. I don't think it helped him any. Don't think it really hurt him any because his value was pretty low to begin with. I think it's the age and just lack of production here lately. So unless he just comes out of the gate hot and delivers a sack or two in the first couple of weeks, keep him on the waivers. If he picks up production, you need a flyer 1 week, pick him up. But other than that, he belongs on the waiver wire, I think.
Yeah, I think Kenny Clark is one of those that he's on the waiver wire. And if you're looking at, shout out to IDP Plus, they have a tool online that shows you how different positions perform against different teams. So if there's a matchup where Kenny Clark is going up against a team that gives up top one, top two, top five type of points to defensive tackles, maybe that's when you pick him up. And by the way, that's a great reason to subscribe to IDP Plus, just that tool alone as a side note. All right. So that concludes what we're going to talk about with the Packers and the Cowboys specific to the trade. We're going to come back and talk about the Cowboys linebackers and other things as an example a little bit later. But first, before we get into all the other IDP news and notes, we do need to talk about the Fantasy Draft Channel, one of the most innovative products featured at the recent Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. Here's the problem every fantasy football commissioner is facing these days. Modern drafts have become silent, boring affairs. Everyone's sitting around staring at their phones, waiting for beeps and boops to tell them it's their turn. Where's the energy? Where's the excitement? Well, that's where Fantasy Draft Channel comes in, folks. It solves this with AI-powered commentary that transforms your sleeper draft into a live broadcast experience. Think ESPN-level commentary personalized to your league dynamics. The Fantasy Football Expo team was so impressed that they featured the Fantasy Draft Channel at the Draft Night Out event. Their response was incredible, with great feedback and laughing engagement from all the people that were participating in those drafts. So with only 1 week left in the draft season, don't let your remaining drafts be forgettable. The Fantasy Draft Channel will bring back that energy and social experience that made fantasy football fun in the first place. And a promo, of course. There's got to be a coupon or something, right? If you're drafting on Sleeper this week or on Labor Day weekend, visit the fantasydraftchannel.com. I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat that, fantasydraftchannel.com. Use code LAUNCH10 for $10 off your first draft. Your league will thank you for the upgrade. All righty. With that, let's get into those IDP news and notes from the preseason, from roster cuts, and we will start with linebackers as we have been doing every week. Now, last week I did mention on the show that I was concerned that we wouldn't see a lot of teams playing their starters. And that was true. Only 7 of the 32 teams actually played their top 2 starting linebackers. However, do not tune out because there was a lot of great information we found from that. There was a lot of great information from the 53-man cuts, et cetera. We're going to give you the information you need for your drafts, for those in Dynasty, for waiver wire pickups, et cetera. So stay with us, okay? So we're going to focus on teams where there are some good news and notes and nuggets, and we're going to start with the Dolphins. And Willie Gay started next to Tyrell Dodson, which had a lot of people nervous. But then they did a sideline interview with Jordan Brooks. He could have played if it were a real game, and he was just sitting there on the sidelines, making sure to recover and get to 100% before week 1. After that one series, Dodson came out, KJ Britt came in, once again implying that Tyrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks are the starters for the Dolphins this year at linebacker. Now, Johnny, Sean and I have talked quite a bit about this linebacker crew. What's your take on Tyrell Dodson specifically? Do you see him as a linebacker 3, a linebacker 4, or do you think the circumstances are such that he'll be a linebacker 2 this year because he's going to get so much playing time?
I think right now he's a linebacker 3. If he eclipses, we'll say 110 tackles, of course he's a linebacker 2. We'll see how the ratios are, the splits are once the season gets going. I'm not drafting him with that expectation. Very unlikely you'll have a linebacker 1 and linebacker 2. I mean, we've seen it in Cincinnati, with Pratt and Wilson. We've seen it with Zaire and whoever else is the LB2 in Indianapolis too. But I don't think that's the expectation. You should if you're high on him, you should pray for that. But at the same time, LB3. Let's be safe here. Let's call a spade, and I think he's an LB3, and fine one at that.
Yeah. On the one hand, he was an undrafted free agent, which makes us want to kind of stay away from him. But he's positioned well for productivity. I could see him sneaking into the low-end linebacker 2 range. So this year, assuming he plays all 17 games. Okay. For the Patriots, just a side note, a quick note: Robert Spillane and Christian Ellis didn't play. Appear to be the starters, as we've been talking about on our previous shows. Nothing that would say otherwise. All righty. Let's move further down and talk about the Bengals. Demetrius Knight has sat out a couple of practices with a lower leg injury. Haven't been able to get word yet on that injury or how serious it is. It sounds like he's going to be available for week 1. So, Sean, Demetrius Knight, linebacker 4 still in your mind? Does this leg injury concern you at all? Does the fact that he played so bad in week 2 that Oren Burks might take his place?
I mean, that's how I expected the season to start, was Oren Burks, for the first couple of weeks, and then we would see Knight come in and eventually take over. As far as the injury goes, I'm not real concerned about it. He's very low on my radar. LB4, like you said, LB5, somewhere around there. Not somebody I'm really targeting right now, just because he's a rookie and I kind of stay away from him. But if you have him, I probably wouldn't start him right off, because I do think between the injury and just, like I said, he did look pretty bad there the other week. So expect this to be a rotation to start out with. Just kind of stay away from it.
So I don't. Let's try that again, folks.
Take two.
Take 3. I do not have Demetrius Knight on a single redraft team this year. I only have him on 1 dynasty roster at this point in time. So I think between Sean and my comments there, that you got to kind of feel what we're thinking about the Bengals. But let's move to the Steelers, where they did finally start both of their starters, Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson. When Queen went out, Wilson stayed in, and Malik Harrison came in next to him. The week before, when it was Wilson and Holcomb. Okay, so not clear on who's going to be the number 3 linebacker. Will it be Harrison? Will it be Holcomb? But besides that point, Johnny, I'm coming to you on this one. Sean and I have been debating about, do we think Peyton Wilson is going to be a 100% snap person this year, just like Queen is? The Steelers historically haven't done that with that second linebacker position. I'm not going to tell you which side of this Sean and I are on, But so, Johnny, is Peyton Wilson going to finally break the trend and for the Steelers and be 100% second linebacker?
The potential's there, but I say no. Just Mike Tomlin stuck in his ways. I don't think he will. And I'll tell you what, I've seen Peyton Wilson drafted as an LB2 for a team in best ball, and I'm thinking, man, I mean, you're taking a long shot. The potential's there. I do like him. I think he could eventually surpass Patrick Queen, but I just don't see it happening. I'm not willing to play that game. You know, there's no certainty there. And to be your LB2, you got to give top 24 value. You know, if there's an injury to Patrick Queen, now we're talking different story. But right now, I'm not seeing it that way.
Well, you almost got that one correct because, as you might have noticed, Sean was on your side in terms he doesn't think there's going to be 100% for that second linebacker with the Steelers. I have a feeling that this is the year that
breaks the trend. Huh?
Breaks the trend that they feel so good about Peyton Wilson where he is that he can play the run and the pass, that he will be in there similar to Queen for 100% of the snaps. Still with that, though, I'm with you, Johnny. I wouldn't draft him as a linebacker 2. I'm drafting him as a linebacker 4 on the higher end that I hope can give me that kind of 2 or 3 production, but I'm just not there in terms of drafting him that early, even though the potential is there.
And I'll tell you what, coming out of Pittsburgh, the hype has been real. I mean, I listen to the radio every day driving to work, 45 hours, and I mean, I hear Peyton Wilson all the time, and you know, it's hometown hype. I think that's what it is, but I've never heard them talk about a linebacker 2 so bullish. So you might be on to something, and I'd be the first one to give you your props if that's the case.
So for those that aren't aware, Johnny lives in the Pittsburgh area, so he's getting all the local talk there. So he would be hearing it. So that's why I'm even surprised by his answer. But we shall see. Okay, moving on to the Ravens. For the third week in a row, Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan started while Roquan Smith rests. So Roquan should be good and healthy going into week 1. Now, Simpson was very active. I saw him deflect a pass that was intercepted by Jalen Armour-Davis, who they actually released later on. Armour-Davis, that is. Simpson also caused a sack fumble, and he had 1.5 sacks in total, and actually Buchanan got the other half a sack with him. But it still certainly appears like Simpson is going to be the number 2 linebacker. Johnny, I'm going to come to you because Sean and I have discussed it quite a bit on our previous shows. What's your take on Simpson? Do you think he's going to hold the starting linebacker job the whole year?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think that there's potential. I mean, we believed in him so much last year. I was tooting the horn. We thought he was going to be like the this year's Diane Henley last year, right? We thought he was going to be that guy as a young linebacker. It didn't pan out. So again, I mean, I see him drafted late in rounds, and when there's guys who are, you know, not going to get that guaranteed volume, I think it's a good stab to take. But again, I mean, I'm not counting on it. You know, it's a big risk reward, and quite frankly, a huge reward if it pays off. And I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I liked him last year. I know we probably all did, but you know, I'm not chasing him, especially in shallower leagues. If I have to, you know, like I said, the snaps will dictate it. If there's other guys that I'm concerned aren't going to get the volume he is, then volume trumps the depth chart. And I am a little bit worried about Buchanan, but at the same time, I think that, you know, that Simpson's going to have to be awfully bad for it to get there that soon.
Okay, Sean, has your mind changed from our previous conversations? Where are you drafting Simpson right now? Linebacker 5 or?
Yeah, five's good. I mean, because he does give you a lot of potential if he holds down the spot. Yeah, I don't see him going any higher than that in any draft. Actually, he was a big target of mine in best ball. I did like taking him there, and that was anywhere from linebacker 5 to 8. So the upside's there. Playing next to Roquan, him being a former coverage guy, I see interceptions coming and stuff like that. So I like his potential. I think the Ravens will be less likely to rotate around this year because there's a lack of veteran depth. Last year, you know, that they had was a Harrison board, so they were able to give somebody who's already been there in the system 4 years or so. It's a kind of come in and you know, cover up some of the insufficiencies there. This year, it's all rookies.
So you're not concerned. So you're not concerned about Jake Hummel, is what you're telling me?
I am not concerned about Jake Hummel.
All right, Sean. Last one on this one with Steelers and the Ravens here. Peyton Wilson or Trenton Simpson? Who you drafting first?
Oh man, I, probably Wilson.
Wilson, Johnny.
Wilson, no doubt.
All right, good deal. All right, let's move to the Browns real quick, where Carson Schlesinger and Devin Bush both started. Schlesinger destroyed Dresser win on the blitz. Of course, the Rams didn't play anybody or hardly anybody that was going to make their 53-man roster, and so he was going to get some. Let's just say maybe not number ones or number twos when he had that. Absolutely destroyed him. He exited after 3 series. Jerome Baker was the third linebacker that came in when they did have a third linebacker with Schlesinger and Devin Bush. No, go ahead and say his name for me, Sean.
Mobu Diabate.
No Mahmoud Diabate. He still was injured and he didn't play. Week 1, Sean, who's starting? Schlesinger and
Bush.
Bush.
Barring
Johnny?
suspension.
I go Bush there too. I go Bush.
All right, it's a trifecta. I think we're all in on Schlesinger and Bush. Diabate, I think, is just too much time, and Baker, based on the utilization, was the clear number 3. So Diabate most likely, I think, becomes a number 3. But to Sean's point, there's these allegations that were made about Bush, and that's still kind of hanging out there. So in those deep leagues where you may have him, keep an eye on that and make sure you have contingency plans just in case he gets suspended. All right, let's move to the Titans where the starters played. And once again, it was Cody Barton, which we expected. But for the second week in a row, we get surprised, and Cedric Gray is starting that preseason game instead of James Williams. We were all on the James Williams train, just like we were on the Jalen Carleys, and we'll talk about the Colts here in a little bit. But it appears that Cedric Gray is the number 2 starter next to Cody Barton, the number 1 starter for the Titans. Now, and Barton was very active. Now, I know James Williams did get an interception on a deflection, but I could have made that interception kind of popped into the air to him. It was like that, when Lynch hit Brett Ripien on that one. So anyway, with that all said, Cedric Gray, where are we treating him, Sean, from a LB perspective? How we bumped? We had James Williams a little bit higher because he also had that defensive back dual eligibility. Gray does not. Yeah. Where are you drafting him?
Low end 4 or 5. I think you have to treat it that way because the way Tennessee has approached this, they still haven't been like, Gray's our guy next to Barton. They're still kind of keeping it somewhat of a mystery. Clearly, he's got a lot of the hype, but I think they're still concerned about his coverage enough that they're not fully ready to give him everything. I think it actually turns into a bit of a rotation to start out with.
Interesting. Charles Davis, the announcer, he a couple of different times. And by the way, as a side note, I watched every key series from all the games for our listeners to make sure we could have great content for you folks. We're not just sitting around doing nothing. We're watching these games.
I was sitting around doing nothing. Ricky did all the work.
Sean, do you agree with Johnny, do you agree with Sean from the standpoint of Cedric Gray? You're not 100% confident that he's going to be that 100% linebacker next to Barton? Or are you feeling more confident than Sean is?
I think the season will shake it out. Eventually we're talking week 5, week 6. We might find some clarity there, but early on, it's not a juicy, exploitation that I want to, dive into. So I do think Gray's, like Sean's concerns he had about Gray and pass coverage are real. And that's why they're, taking serious consideration and wanted James Williams so much to take that spot. And, Cedric Gray, right time, right place, had a big game in the preseason. But like you said, Ricky, I think that kind of just put him about even. I don't think that really tipped the scale too much in his favor. So I'm not excited about either of these guys. I understand, last year we saw Kenneth Murray have some production at the LB2 role, but I don't think these guys are either, more than maybe close to 100 tackles, but I don't think anything seriously more.
Yeah. So I have to admit, in terms of where I'm at on this, if you throw in Peyton Wilson, Simpson, as we did earlier, Wilson 1, Gray 2, Simpson 3. And I'm willing to take a gamble, not too early. We're talking about, late linebacker, right. High linebacker 5, but I'm willing to take that gamble on that point on Gray because if he hits, And the way that the Titans have used their linebackers, where they pretty much, play them 100% of the time, as Johnny was kind of alluding to with Murray and so forth, in the past, they play those two linebackers 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet they're going to continue that and not do the Gray Williams flip flop. It might burn me in the butt, but that's where I'm playing it. Sean, looked like you're about to say something on that.
Yeah, well, if you're taking him as the LB, 5 or whatever, it's a good shot in the dark, or good dart throw, because at that point they all have flaws, and it doesn't burn you if it doesn't pan out, because you've already got your other starters ready to roll. My concern, I guess, is because of last year with the Date Landman and Troy Anderson rotation, where we've seen one come down as the run thumper and the other guy come in on pass coverages. And with their two skill sets, where Gray is the downhill guy and Williams is the converted safety, I guess that's what's given me PTSD from last year with those guys. Like I could see that happening. I really don't think they're going to go 3 linebacker sets too often. And looking at last year, when it mattered, when games mattered, it was Williams getting the start over Gray. This is the same coaching staff, so I'm not saying Gray is fully taking it. And they're not announcing it that way. So it gives me a lot of concern. But like you said, to your point, when you're taking a linebacker that late with the upside that Gray has, it's no big deal if he doesn't pan out. You cut him, you find somebody else, you can move on. So taking him at the right point and at the right time, the value is phenomenal. And if it doesn't work out, you're good.
All righty. All right. So let's go to the Texans here. Now, Aziz Shire, which is one of our concerns about him, is that he is periodically hurt. He was hurt, missed some practice time. No updates on that yet. Of course, coaches, we didn't talk about this previously, but coaches don't have to do any injury reports and things along those lines. Yeah. So we're in wait and see mode on that. He didn't play in the last preseason game, nor did Henry To'oTo'o. So that meant EJ Speed, Christian Harris, and Jake Hansen played the first 2 series. Hansen did get dinged up briefly, but he went back in. Do you know which of those 3 wore the green dot as a side note?
No.
A safety.
Yep, Jake Hansen actually wore the green dot. Okay. It wasn't Speed or it wasn't Harris, which was interesting. But that aside, are we comfortable with any of Speed or Harris? I'm not even going to ask Hansen. Do we think? Let me rephrase that question. Do we think Speed or Harris overtakes Henry To'oTo'o before the year's over? Johnny, we'll start with you.
I think if anything, it's going to be Harris. If he's able to stay healthy, I think the potential's there. He was drafted to be that guy. I think the coaches like him there from what I've read reports about him. But To'oTo'o is playing too well to really give these other guys a shot. I think they're both depth pieces, and it's strong depth pieces in case of an injury. I'm still high on Aziz Al-Shire, but as far as the other guys, I'm not really trying to dip in that well either.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with Johnny. If anything, I see Harris playing next to To'oTo'o because Al-Shire is suspended or injured. If Harris himself is healthy. I don't like this group at all. The more I think about it, the less I'm liking Aziz Al-Shire. So I'm avoiding Texans altogether.
Interesting. So I do expect Al-Shire to get hurt again this year.
Yep.
And I actually expect Harris to jump into the lineup next to Henry. And I do think Harris will be the leading scorer for the Texans. Not enough to put him as a number 1 or number 2 linebacker, but if I was placing a bet right now in Vegas, that would be my bet.
I don't hate that.
All right, let's go to the Jags real quick, who did not play any of their starters. And so Jags sat out a lot of people, and they sat out Aluakon, they sat out Devin Lloyd, who I was very nervous, and I'm still very nervous. For those that missed the show last week, there was this weird rotation going on with Devin Lloyd and Ventrell Miller, and both of them sat out along with Aluakon this past week. Just be careful with this situation with the Jags linebackers as a side note. But I knew Chad Muma was in trouble when he and Jack Kaiser were both active and both started. With Kaiser being the rookie draft pick, he's not going anywhere. And, of course, that's how it turned out, that Muma was released. But the only reason I wanted to mention the Jags in particular, though, well, there's a Muma reference coming up with the Colts, but was because of this whole Devin Lloyd situation. Be very careful about Devin Lloyd unless we see something play out differently.
So
Sean, Sean,
if
go ahead.
if you look at the Jaguars' projected starters on their own website, Ventura Miller is looking ahead of Devin Lloyd. If we go back into preseason week 2, Devin Lloyd was getting special team snaps. That's not a good sign. Uh, there's a lot of talk that this is flipped in Miller's favor. Uh, so with that
You,
uncertainty, if you grab one, you either got to grab the other one later on, or you might just stay away from this for now. Because again, this looks like a potential rotation. And I was big on Lloyd. Contract year. I thought new staff and everything, new system. I thought it was going to be way better. And for whatever reason, it looks like Miller is if he's not overtaken Lloyd, he's at least cutting into his time. He's going to steal some snaps, if nothing else.
well, so listening audience, I want to be clear. Sean doesn't just sit on his ass while I'm watching all the games, and you could tell from that research right there that he is staying on top of things for you, our listening audience here, and sometimes watching audience as well. So I'm really concerned as well, as I was alluding to earlier on Lloyd. He's someone I was, if you listen to one of our previous shows, I have to admit, going back a few weeks, I was really excited because the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator came over from Green Bay. He was linebackers coach there. Loved the way they used Walker and Cooper late in the year last year, thinking Lloyd fills that Cooper type of role. Now it might be Ventrell Miller, and Ventrell Miller might be the sleeper here, folks. So you heard it here. Ventrell Miller, if he's on waivers, if you already drafted or in a dynasty league, go get him. There could be something interesting there. All right, moving on to the Colts. Chad Muma, speaking of Chad Muma, however you say his freaking name. Muma got claimed by the Colts when he got put on waivers by the Jaguars. Okay, so now we'll put that into context in a second of why I called that out. First, Jalen Carley's once again didn't play in game 3, preseason game 3. He's been injured basically all of training camp, all of the pre-training camp stuff, mini camps, OTAs, you name it. Hasn't gotten really any work, and he was placed on IR to start the year. Zaire Franklin, coming off surgery, did not play a single preseason snap, started getting eased into team drills during week 2. Johnny, any concerns about drafting Zaire Franklin as high as he's typically going, given this ankle concern and lack of playing time in the preseason?
No, definitely not with the playing time in the preseason. Sure, anytime someone comes off a surgery, you're a little bit concerned. But if he led the league with, I think it was 178 tackles last, or 174, one of the two. If he was able to do that with a bum ankle, he got it cleaned up, and I think they're just kind of wrapping him in bubble wrap and keeping him safe and sound. So I'm not really concerned here. Just the type of player he is when he gets on the field. He makes up for it, in the tackle department, sacks, forced fumbles, everything. So he's still my 101 as far as IDP. Injury could happen at any given time, but still nobody out there is putting the rubber to the road like he does once it gets going.
Okay. All right, Sean. So, where are you seeing him going? I know you're doing a lot of drafting right now. Where are you seeing Franklin going? You still seeing him going in the number 1 or number 2 spot for linebackers, or is he drifting a little bit?
No, he's still first or second. Very rare does he fall to LB3, but usually he's the first. Uh, I'm not betting on him hitting that number this year. I do see him still being, a top 12, top 10 guy. This lingering injury that he's had all off season, camp and all that, it's got me a little concerned for a slow start. There's not a lot of competition next to him. So once they get rolling, he's still got a good defensive interior there in front of him to keep him clean. So I do see him racking up the tackles again. I'm just not expecting it to be the number 1 guy again this year. So
Maybe he gets off to a slow start, and whoever drafted him is pissed and frustrated, and maybe he's a steal from a trade perspective as a result.
There you
Something to keep
go.
in mind, folks, if he gets off to a slow start. Now, of course, we talked about Carly. Carly's going on IR. Joe Bacci did not play, but Cameron McGrone did. They were starting the previous games together. Even though Bacci was wearing the green dot and McGrone was more in the, I'll call it the number 2 linebacker role. It certainly appears right now that it appeared, let me rephrase that Bocce was going to be the number 2 linebacker next to Zaire Franklin. However, when teams start doing things, even if they don't say it, they say a lot without saying anything. So they claimed Chad Muma off waivers from the Jags. They brought in Kaiser White for a visit. They brought in Anthony Walker for a visit, who started his career with the Colts, was very productive there and well liked there. And they signed Anthony Walker today on Friday, August 29th. So that tells us a lot about how they're feeling about their Colts linebacker core. And I wish some of this would have come out before I spent some fab money on Joe Bocce on Wednesday night. But besides that, who's starting week 1 next to Zaire Franklin, Sean? Is it Bocce or is it Anthony Walker?
Yeah, this close to the season, it has to be Bocce. Anthony Walker just spent the entire preseason doing nothing down in Tampa, injured. If anything, I'm picking up Chad Muma in some of these really deep leagues.
Interesting. Johnny. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry, finish up. Then I'll ask Johnny.
Chris Ballard, the GM, he is speaking very highly of Chad Muma. Very highly. He was on their board, back when he was drafted. They like his versatility. They think he can play Mike, Will, wherever. If the GM's, speaking that highly of you as a waiver wire pickup, the path is there because there's not a lot in front of him.
You said the ultimate word, though, waiver wire pickup. Johnny, who's starting? Okay, I'm asking this question slightly different. It is now week 10. Who's starting next to Franklin? Carly's, Bocce, or Walker? Or TBD?
I think the Colts want to start Carly's there. I think that he kind of burned his chances. That last year got hurt too when he got an opportunity. So bad timing, for him. And maybe they're over him at that point. And I think the Bocce signing is just like, hey, we got dealt with some bad luck. Let's slap a Band-Aid on it. Lou Anarumo knew him from Cincinnati. So get some familiar faces. I think he's the week 1 starter. But I do think, we're hoping for IDP. It is Carly's in week 10. But I who knows? Maybe he burned his chance. And I think if you're looking at Bocce or Chad Muma, who Sean, had some kind words about, I think for IDP's sake, for the tackles, we do want Chad Muma there. But I think still Carly's is better, from an IDP sense than Muma. But you never know.
So I think I'm with you. But when we get to week 10, I think after week 4, Carly's gets activated off of IR. He serves his 4 weeks. His ankle is better. And then he spends the next 6 weeks kind of getting up to speed and then he kind of replaces EJ Speed. See what I did there? Okay, I digress. So that's how I think it's going to play out. Let's move to the Broncos. Alex Singleton played 2 series. Justin Sternad started next to him. They're still being very careful with Dre Greenlaw. Sean, I don't think we've talked about this very much. How are we feeling about Dre Greenlaw this year?
He's an injury risk every year. If he goes late enough, I have been picking him up because I've seen him in the LB5 range. I'll pick him up then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's actually been sliding a lot in most of these IDP only drafts I've been doing. So, I think it's just a lingering injury and then injury history are against him right now. But if you can get him as LB5, he comes back healthy and shows us what he's done in the past, then that's a huge steal. So if he's going late enough, pick him up. I'm not taking him as my LB2. LB3, I've been passing on him at LB3 because, like I said, he's fallen far enough I can pick him up later. So at that value, I think he's a good pickup for sure.
All right, Johnny, where's Dre Greenlaw going to finish? Linebacker 2, 3, 4, or 5?
Well, health depends. Is the ultimate question. If he can stay healthy, I think there is a chance he's a top 24 linebacker. But he also has Alex Singleton, who I'm super high on. I know he's down in the rankings, but I still can't get him out of my top 5, top 6. So love Singleton there. And just one thing after another. It was a quad. Coming into the preseason, there's always something with Dre Greenlaw. So I just think there's not enough tackles to go around there, and it could be a good signing. It could be a good IDP play. But I don't even, best case scenario would be an LB2, and I just don't see it. I'm not banking on that at all.
These guys are going to have 200 assisted tackles each. They're both going to be getting every tackle.
There, it'll be interesting to see if they also keep two linebackers on the field. And I think with Greenlaw, if he is healthy, they will.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of depth in the secondary and a lot of these, so for dime packages, things along those lines, it'd be really interesting to see. I think Greenlaw will give us 13 great games this year. Hopefully the one that he doesn't do quite as well when he gets hurt, it's not in the first quarter to really kill that week for you.
True.
But my number 3 linebacker, and I believe Sean knows this from a previous discussion, is Drew Sanders, who's sitting on IR. And if I can stash Drew Sanders in really deep leagues when either Singleton or Greenlaw gets hurt and Sanders is back from injury, he's the one to pop in there, not Sterned, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job. And I'm the opposite of you, Johnny. I have to admit, I have been down on Alex Singleton, his age, coming back from an ACL injury. And on top of that, now he has a club on his hand, at least for a period of time this year, which should impact. It's kind of hard to wrap with a club. So anyway, and let alone grab an interception and things along those lines. So I'm down on Singleton as a side note. All right, let's move to the Raiders. And once again, similar to what we've been seeing throughout the preseason, Devin White with the green dot, Elandon Roberts starting to him next to him, along with Jermaine Pratt, and Pratt once again playing on the edge with the three of them together, which is very disconcerting from a IDP productivity perspective for Pratt. I actually traded Pratt for a 4th rounder in a dynasty league this week as a side note. So I was glad to get something for him because I'm worried about him plummeting. Johnny, you worried about Pratt plummeting based on what you're seeing, even though when they go to 2 linebackers, Roberts is the one coming off the field and it's White and Pratt. But are you concerned about Pratt based on this edge? Because we saw what it did to Foye Oluokun last year.
I'm a little bit concerned. I'd like to see that. I think Jermaine Pratt is the guy. I mean, he was a top 25, IDP finisher, great tackler. I think they're playing head games here. I do think for week 1, I don't want to start any of these guys. I'll just say that. If I had to pick one, it's still Pratt. I'll take the chance because the other guys are quite frankly dead to me unless one of them's playing in the middle. I'm not. Landon Roberts was at Pittsburgh. He's the 2-down guy. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid at all. I'm either going to take my hand out of the pot at all costs, or I'm just going to draft Pratt. But I can't start him in week 1. But I would not be surprised, a few weeks in, if he's the guy and he's picking up where he left off. Robert Spillane, 148 tackles in 23, 158 last year. Huge opportunity there for somebody, and I think Pratt's one of the guys that showed us he can be on all 3 downs.
Yeah. So, Johnny, after insulting the LSU, by the way, do you see the LSU helmet behind me, Johnny? Just disparaging that Devin White, the green dot guy. Sean, are you playing any of these guys week 1?
Playing them? No, but I have a lot of Devin White on my rosters. But I'm getting him as he'll be 6, 7, crazy numbers. He's an afterthought, so I pick him up. He's one of my last round dart throws because we've seen this system, big star linebackers for IDP, Patrick Graham's system. So he's the green dot. He's the guy that's not on the edge, and he's not coming off the field. So why not Devin White? There's your slogan.
Can I say this too? I want to add something. I was listening to a podcast where I did hear, Devin White. I mean, he was a great player. Where did that go, right? And I was listening to a Raiders podcast where they had said that over the last, I forget how many months ago, his father had passed away. And he said that, because of his passing, they really didn't have, I think at the story, if I'm correct, they really didn't have much. They time passed them up. They didn't have a good relationship. But when his father passed away, I think that the moral of the story was that he got his passion back for football and after the mourning of that. So, I mean, maybe there's a little bit more, passion in Devin White's game. And I wouldn't be surprised, if he does return to form. He's been there the longest, I'm thinking it's Pratt, but he's been there longer. So maybe they give him the chance and that's all he needs. So I do think if he's able to hold that ability, there's high upside there. But I mean, how can you look at what Jermaine Pratt did? I understand real life football isn't all about the tackles. I understand that. But, as far as fantasy, I think Pratt's the highest upside of them. But yeah, to Sean's point, I could see Devin White, but definitely not Roberts.
Yeah, we're not starting any of them, but they are
Right.
on our benches just in case.
Right.
I'm actually comfortable starting Devin White as a linebacker for, and it's not just because of my blind LSU allegiance. It's because he's wearing a green dot. He's been playing 100% of the snaps. There's been no indication that he's not going to wear the green dot. To Johnny's point, there's been a lot of talk about him refocused. He also had a great discussion with his mom that apparently whatever she said got him refocused. So I'm in on Devin White this year, and I wouldn't be afraid to play him in week 1. To be honest with you, we'll see if I'm right on that. Hopefully, I'm not steering our audience wrong. And if you guys are right, kudos to you guys. Now, there was no sight of Jamal Adams on that first drive, where in the first couple of preseason games he was doing a little bit rotating in, including taking Pratt's spot a couple of times. So just Jamal Adams is something else to watch. And on MFL, on my fantasy league, on that platform, they've actually changed him from a safety to a linebacker, so you don't get the positional cheat code if he were to move into the starting lineup at some point. The Chargers, Junior freaking Colson, who I tried to trade for in so many dynasty leagues, and thank goodness wasn't able to acquire him. Okay, and I was making some pretty good offers out there. He looked horrible in the
Every week.
Hall of Fame game. Yeah, every week. In week 1, week 2. Then all of a sudden he goes on IR. Are we dumping him from a dynasty perspective, Sean? Or are we going to be patient with him a little bit longer going into next year?
No, I'm done with him. That was his college coach there, and maybe if they don't know the plays of the other team, he can't produce as well. is the story I'm hearing. So, if he's getting beat out by just about anybody on the Chargers team, the entire everybody that was in that linebacker group, I think it's nothing to hold on to, because he really did look awful in in a lot of those games.
Absolutely.
At first, I thought this IR thing was just a, hey, you're doing terrible, but we're not giving up on you. We're just going to let you sit this year. Now they're coming out saying there's a shoulder injury, so I don't know if I believe it. I still think it's, hey, you were awful, but we're still going to give you another chance next preseason, and then he's gone. That's what I think.
All right. So when people forget about this bad preseason later in the year, throw him in to help close out a deal maybe. Let's move to the Giants. And Dan Duggan from The Athletic said there's a chance that Bobby Okereke loses his every down role as the team looks to get Darius Muasau more involved. We talked about it in last week's show where they in the week 2 preseason game, they had this weird rotation of Okereke, McFadden, Muasau over the first several series, and they even rotated who had the green dot and so forth. Sean, are you seeing Okereke slip down draft boards, or are people not picking up on that yet?
They're not fully picking up on this. Now, some of the, I'll say more expert leagues I'm in, the savvier guys, the Sharks, they're picking up on it. He is sliding, but he's still not sliding as far as he should be. I've not touched it. I've not gone anywhere near him all offseason. I've been off of him, and we've talked about that in previous shows. I've not been a no Okereke guy this year. That was going back to the back injury last year. It just the staff then were kind of questioning his toughness, and he was in the doghouse and all that too. So, and the stats were down. So, I've been off of him. It's not looking good there at all. Maybe he's the leader on the Colts team by week 10.
In terms of Nessisire Franklin to return back to the Colts. Now, that's an interesting prediction. We shall see. Johnny, who's going to lead the Giants from an IDP scoring perspective this year? Okereke, McFadden, and Muasau, based on what we were just discussing.
Can I go Nubin?
I'm Team Nubin as well.
Linebackers here.
I'll still take Bobby Okereke, and rightfully so. He is sliding. I have this can be spun a couple different ways, but what's the finishing touches in my mind is I just can't get over the year he had in 2023. Did not miss a snap. He did have back surgery, and that's a big problem. So we saw back and neck surgery is what it does to guys like, Darius Leonard or Shaq Leonard. And that's a very big concern. But at the same time, what I've been reading before we get this news about the preseason, we're worried about the preseason, the flop, throwing ragtag of all these linebackers around. I think, honestly, and I'm not going to sit here and say he's still a top 10 linebacker. He's got to slide out of the top 25, no doubt. You got to, you got to pay the bills. You got to get guys who are going to get the snaps guaranteed at those LB1, LB2s. But if he's sliding to LB3, come on, when the rubber hits the road, I mean, Darius Masal, I think this might be a little bit of a case of like, hey, if Bobby's not right, we need to know a plan in advance, right? So I think Bobby Okereke, what I've read from him coming out of his mouth on Twitter, on Google, is I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. And I think this was a way to get his toes wet into the preseason without, risking injury. So if he's going as a LB3, maybe linebacker, say 32, 34, I'm going to take him there, honestly, and just err on the side of, they're just treating him in bubble wrap. And I think the upside's still there. I mean, I don't think they have an extremely deep group to begin with. And they do, Micah McFadden's a good player. Musah could be a good player. But like I said, I think they're really just erring on the side of caution, seeing if in case of emergency, what we can go with.
Interesting perspective. Okay, we hadn't looked at it that way. I'm still personally staying away from Okereke as well. If I can get McFadden late and Musah even later, I'm going to do that. But I'm not going very high on these guys. Now, for some of our audience saw Sean and I's series from earlier this off season, where we did a series of 9 shows and we talked about repeat rates at each of the different positions. And so while Johnny has brought up the fact about Pratt, having a good year last year, Okereke was, when he did play on a points per game average, was fairly solid. But in general, of the top 24 linebackers from the previous year, Sean, correct me if I'm remembering incorrectly, but I believe it's only 11 of the top 24 linebackers repeat year over year.
11 is what I was thinking as well. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. So, and by the way, if you missed that series, go back and check them. You can, even if you just want to go, at the beginning and listen to the numbers of repeats by each of the positions, both IDP and offense. Really interesting info. So, with that kind of high turnover rate, that's another reason. And then you have like someone like Pratt going into a new system. Okereke last year, new defensive coordinator. He's had a chance to evaluate him and so forth. I think there's some smoke behind this. I think there's some fire behind the smoke and all. I'm staying away from Okereke. Let's move to the Cowboys here. I talked about their first depth chart being released a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Micah Parsons trade. If you kind of been jumping around this recording here and you missed that at the beginning, go back and listen. You can hear our takes on Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, etc. You can check it all out there. But in this Cowboys first depth chart release, they had Jack Sanborn, Kenneth Murray, and at the third linebacker spot, they had Damone Clark or Maris Lufau. So with the addition of Kenny Clark now to the middle of this lineup, instead of Mozzie Smith, the flop, so you have Kenny Clark and Osa Odighizuwa. Does it make you feel better or worse about Jack Sanborn, Johnny?
Mm-hmm. I'm the same about him. I'm just all wheels up on Jack Sanborn. The most important stat you need to understand about Jack, and I love Wisconsin linebackers. I mean, TJ Edwards, I thought Ryan Connolly was going to be great. He was putting up tackles until he tore his ACL and fell out of the league. Chris Borland is another, darling from Wisconsin. Jack Sanborn he's only 24 years old, but has been absolutely elite when he got the opportunity. Here's my stat I want to say. 3 years in Chicago, right? When he played 85% or more snaps, which happened 7 times, all starts, he had 71 tackles combined in those games. So you're looking at 10 and then some, over 10 tackles a game. I mean, you look at what Eric Kendricks did last year, 138 tackles and 3 sacks. I'm wheels up on Jack Sanborn. All he needed is a chance. He gets a familiar coach. The stars have aligned for him. And to me, I have him ranked as a 21st linebacker. I think there's top 10 upside. So doesn't matter what goes on the line. Sure, things open up or close up for Jack Sanborn, but I'm still unaffected here. I just love him so much, and that's one of my biggest sleepers. So I'm glad you asked me.
All right, good. Sean, you on the Sanborn train as well?
Yeah, he's the only one I feel confident in right now. Because to be honest with you, I thought Lufau had already overtaken Murray. by the play and the coach talking everything. So I'm a little surprised that they're sticking with Murray here.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We've both been out on Murray this year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think he'll last as a starter, even though they traded for him, particularly when they fall out of the playoffs late in the year. But it was also really interesting, too, and it's part of the reason I called it out, that they had this Damone Clark or Maris Lufau as a third linebacker. The defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, has been extremely high on Damone Clark. But Lufau's been playing well, so I think as the year progresses, we got to watch for both of those gentlemen getting more and more playing time with the Cowboys. I'd be willing to stash both of those two right now. Okay, we're at the hour mark already, and we still have so much more content to go to for our listeners. And one of our listeners had put into the YouTube comments, it's okay if y'all run 2 hours. We can break it up and listen to pieces when we're going to and from work or when we're going on our run. So keep on going. Give us the content. So we're going to keep on going, folks. All right. And with that, we're moving to the Eagles. Last Wednesday was the first time that when Zach Bond was in practice, that Jihad Campbell actually started with the linebackers and he started next to Bond. Then lo and behold, week 3 preseason game comes along. Neither Bond or Campbell dresses out. Jeremiah Trotter and Smail Mondon both started and played 4 series in the first quarter. Now, look, Brady Cook was the quarterback, and there was like a lot of 3 and outs, so that's why it was so many series. They're still in the first quarter. But it was clear that Bond and Campbell, at least to Ricky's opinion, Bond and Campbell are going to be the week 1 starters. Sean, do you agree with that? 1, simple yes or no. 2 is, now that we have this clarity and it's become much clearer than we expected, where are you drafting Jihad Campbell if you're starting a new draft tomorrow? Linebacker 1, linebacker 2, linebacker 3? What do you think?
All signs point that he is going to start, which I'm a bit surprised at. I really thought we were going to see Trotter take over first, kind of like the Knight and Burke situation in Cincinnati. So I'm a little surprised we're throwing the rookie right in, especially after the injuries and all that, missing some time. So good for him for getting to that point. He's still going late right now. He's still going as an LB 4 or 5.
Are you willing to move him up to linebacker 3?
I'm not taking him any higher than that. No, it's just the way I am with rookies. I still don't fully like his situation. Eventually, this is going to be a rotation. Nakobe Dean comes back. It's going to turn into something eventually. So I want my top 3 linebackers to be guys I can count on all year long, and I don't think he's going to be one of them this year.
Interesting. So Sean started going where I wanted to go, Johnny. So going over to you. So even if Campbell's starting week 1, Nakobe Dean, let's say he comes back week 11, somewhere around there. He's fully recovered from the injury that happened in the playoffs last year. Is Nakobe Dean going to send Jihad Campbell to the bench at that point after he had such a fantastic year last year? And he'll probably be really pushing to play and pushing the coaches to play because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So is Nakobe Dean going to be starting for Campbell late this year, Johnny?
No, he's not. I don't think so. I think that the Eagles are trying to move on from him. It's year 4 for him. Like you said, end of the line with a contract. But bottom line, it comes down. We know what Nakobe Dean can do, so it works in his favor. Now, just what can Jihad Campbell do? If he excels, how are you going to give it back? To a spot back when a guy's doing well. Easy money on that, right? But if Jihad Campbell struggles, they know what they got in Dean, and it's a fine player. And if he does go to some other team, he'll be fine there too. So I do like Nakobe Dean. No disrespect to him, but Jihad Campbell, from what we heard, all the hype is real. So and maybe they manipulate the roles there. I think Jihad Campbell we're expecting to be this inside linebacker, like through and through, no edge play, but I still think they'll mess around with him on that edge too. So there could be room for all 3. I don't think that's the best case scenario, but let's see what Campbell does. If he excels in that inside role, I think he'll stick with it.
Sean, I was watching your nonverbals. Thoughts on that?
Not a terrible take. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's going to happen that way. But
how do you think it's going to play out?
I really think Campbell's going to look like a rookie, and if Dean is healthy, and depending on where they are standing wise, if if they're still having to fight for a playoff spot, which they shouldn't with the Cowboys already being out thanks to this trade, uh, yeah, it comes down to them with Washington more or less, or maybe a wildcard spot. If they're fighting and if Dean is healthy and Campbell's struggling, I'm putting Dean in just to get that playoff spot to really shore up my defense.
Yeah.
But to Giants' point, if Campbell runs away with this thing, it'd be hard to take him off the field. And you could make the argument that, well, we're just going to ease Dean in or, keep him healthy for the playoffs, and that kind of buys him an out for the rest of the year.
Well, one other angle,
I
and
still don't like
you both brought up some great points and all. I think Nakobe Dean is going to take the job, but here's why. But it's a little bit different from what you two gentlemen have said. If the Eagles still had the same defensive ends or edge players that they had last year, I might feel different. But I think when Dean comes back healthy and they're struggling to rush the passer with the combinations of Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt and Uchi and Azeez Ojulari and so forth, they're going to try and get Campbell some time on the edge rushing the passer and maybe even more than that. And I think that's going to be what's going to happen is that Dean will move back into the lineup and Campbell starts playing more on the edge. Now, will it be a light switch? Maybe that the first game Dean's back, there's a little bit of a rotation. But I could see if they're struggling in the pass rush, Campbell moving to the edge, which they said they were going to use him at both spots. And it was part of the reason he fell in some rookie drafts because of that concern about he might play on the edge. So just another thing for our listeners and watchers to consider on the Eagles side of things.
You heard it here first, folks. Ricky said Jihad Campbell is the next Micah Parsons.
No, Ricky Rodriguez did not say that.
Moving from linebacker to edge rusher and taking the league by storm. You heard it here.
Oh, okay, I'll take credit for it if that actually happens. All right, on the Packers side of things, we talked, like as I mentioned just now, we talked about the Micah Parsons trade earlier and so forth. I just want to make it, we usually just talk about IDP, but from an offense perspective, the loss of Parsons on that defense with some of the other issues they have in the secondary and the injuries and so forth, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, they might get another notch up or two from an offensive standpoint because they may have to throw even more. I already thought that Prescott was going to be in the top 3 in terms of pass attempts this year because of their defense. I think he might be number 2, only behind Burrow, who I predicted, by the way, Johnny, you didn't know this, as the MVP for the league this year is going to be Joe Burrow. And not just because of the LSU, because I think the Bengals defense is so bad, they're going to have to throw and throw and throw and throw, and he's just going to rack up ridiculous numbers. So
you
just
heard it here, folks. Ricky said the Cowboys offense is the 24 Bengals.
So I would have no problem picking CeeDee Lamb as my number 2 offensive player after Jamar Chase right now. Okay, enough on that offensive stuff. Let's go to the Bears now. Tremaine Edmonds did not play in that last preseason game. I haven't heard as to why. TJ Edwards and Noah Sewell were the top 2 linebackers, with Ruben Hippolyte coming in as the number 3 linebacker with those, which makes Hippolyte the number 4 since Tremaine Edmonds wasn't there. Okay. Sewell was the Mike. Edwards was the Will. Once again, Tremaine Edmonds looks like he will be the Mike. We haven't been feeling good in our discussions that Sean and I have been having about Tremaine Edmonds. Johnny, what's your feeling on Tremaine Edmonds? Feels like he's more named since his rookie year than actual production.
Yeah, I don't think he has huge upside. I mean, I'm still no doubter taking TJ Edwards here. And TJ Edwards, I mean, with a down year, I forget what the exact stats were, but I think it was still like 130 tackles. That's a down year, So TJ Edwards, to me, I'm fine with. I'm not worried about the alignment too much. Tremaine Edmonds, I understand. Like, there's a point where you got to take him, LB4, something like that. He does give serviceable 110 tackles or so. But to me, I'm not really a Tremaine Edmonds guy. Since he left Buffalo, never really have been. So I just love TJ Edwards there. I think he's due for a little rebound too. So like I said, LB4 should be drafted in deeper leagues, but I don't think there's room for much growth there.
Sean, you on the Edwards hype train as well? I'm a little bit concerned with this Dennis Allen defense and then playing more man-to-man coverage at the linebacker position, which could hurt Edwards and Edmonds tackles.
Yeah, I have 0 shares of either one, and it's not really on purpose for the Edwards. He usually goes before I have a shot to take him. or I'm a little higher on someone else. So, yeah, I would take a shot on Edwards. He does still give you that top 10 potential, if not higher. But he's going in between the guys I'm taking. That's the only
Got it.
reason I don't have any.
Okay. And so Edwards, by the way, missed a practice on Wednesday, I believe it was. I didn't get a chance to check if practice reports from yesterday. So just keep an eye on that. And if there's something serious there, and then of course Tremaine Edmonds didn't play in that game. So if there's something with Edwards, just keep an eye on, and Noah Sewell might be someone to consider as well. Okay, let us move all the way to the Saints right now. They did start Demario Davis and Pete Werner. Looks like those two are the clear starting linebackers. Stutzman is number 3. So just as an FYI for folks. Moving to the Rams. No Nate Landman, no Omar Spates, no Troy Reeder in preseason week 3, as had been consistent with the first 2 games. But then there was another surprise. Sean Dolac also did not just out, and he actually made the team as the number 4 linebacker. As a side note, Tony Fields and Elias Neal were in for the first 3 series. I thought maybe Chris Paul was inactive and all, but then when I was watching the game, he made a tackle on the second Rams punt of the game, so he clearly was active. And then now we really know what the Rams thought about their 5th-round draft pick from Ole Miss, and that they actually released him. I had to get the Ole Miss thing in since LSU rivals and they cut him, kind of thing. But anyway, so now Chris Paul is sitting on the Seahawks practice squad. His name is Pooh. Nickname is Pooh. He must have clearly been a Pooh performer for the Rams this all season and all. But it's Landman, it's Spates, it's Reeder, and it's Dolac. Johnny, how you feeling about Nate Landman? You think he can crack the number 2 linebacker role, as a lot of these no-name Rams linebackers have done?
Absolutely. He's a top 24 already. I've done podcasts. I've put him in the top 24, just at 24. But yeah, man, another guy who just needed an opportunity to shine. 2023, he played 75% of snaps. On just 75% of snaps, 110 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 sacks. So don't look at just last year. Last year, he only played 65% of snaps. Didn't have the nice stats to go along with that. But just 2 years ago, 2023, and then we're getting the news that he's going to wear the green dot. I'm all in on Lamb, and he's just a little bit behind Sanborn for me.
Yeah, and then an unfortunate thing for Spates, who people were in the offseason were hoping he was going to move into that number 1 role. He'll be the number 2 linebacker role, which for the Rams is Sean, 70, 80% type of role, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it's on the lower end of the LB2s, I think. I want to say 70, 75-ish. Because they go a lot of 3-4 safeties.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 3. You two, this question about 3 linebackers. Landman, Roseboom, Sanborn. Of course, Roseboom now wearing the dot in Carolina, with Josie Jewell having been put on waivers because of his concussions. Rank them: Landman, Roseboom, Sanborn. Johnny, rank them.
Sanborn, Landman, Roseboom, by not by much. I still
Sean?
respect Christian Roseboom.
I got Roseboom ahead of the other 2.
Interesting. Okay, state your case for Roseboom, since we haven't talked about the Panthers.
God, I just feel like that's they're going to rack up more tackles. I see we were talking about the Cowboys possibly being in more shootouts instead of a team being up and just running the ball. If that offense is as high powered as we think it is, it's going to be a lot of passing and not somebody just riding out the clock with a running attack. So I could see that kind of hurting Sanborn a little bit. But to Johnny's point, these guys, even though I got Roseboom higher than the other guys, we're looking at possibly all 3 of them back to back. You know what I mean? So it's not like one of them's miles ahead of the other. I think they're all good in that LB3 range.
Yeah. So Johnny, you said you had Landman in your rankings at, I believe, number 24, if I remember correctly. So do you have Sanborn and Roseboom right behind him, or you have a little bit of a gap?
Sanborn 21, Roseboom 24. I'm sorry, Sanborn 21, Landman 24. And then I just did a top 24 for the latest podcast I did. But I mentioned Roseboom as somebody who can definitely, finish as a linebacker too. I mean, he was a big-time tackler, and That's what we're looking for. You're not going in looking for interceptions, big splash plays like that. But Roseboom can definitely rack them up. Like I said, those three are close. But I just think that the opportunity that Sanborn and Landman get, they're going to make the most of. So I think, and these guys I think are a little bit more splashier. Jack Sanborn has gotten sacks. Nate Landman's the 3 forced fumbles in 2023. I think he had maybe 2 or 3 last year in 2024 on 65% of snaps. So I think they got a little bit more splash to their game too.
Yeah, so I think we're all three see them as low end 2s, high end 3s. I think is where we would probably put all these gentlemen. But I think you can get them showing for late 3, even late 4 in some cases.
Yeah.
Cost in drafts right now.
Even Landman's going pretty overlooked, and part of that's because he's been a bit injured right now. So when guys are looking at if you're on Sleeper and you're scrolling through their rankings, you see Landman and it has a questionable tag next to it. You're like, ooh, Landman, he was in a rotation last year. Is he really all that? He's just getting overlooked. So, yeah, all of them are going pretty late right now. You probably get all 3 of them on your team very easily, actually.
Yeah, depending on your draft strategy, how they talk about 0 running back strategies and so forth. From a 0 linebacker strategy perspective, if you walk out of the draft with those 3 as as your top 3 linebackers, not the worst thing in the world, guys. Particularly if you're really bulking up at the other positions.
Yeah, if you're going edge heavy, yeah, that's not a bad strategy to get any of those guys. We just talked about their potential of all of them being LB2 potential. One of them may be in sneaking into the top 15, 12, somewhere around there.
All righty. So Tyrese Knight with the Seahawks now, he's been out for a couple of different reasons here. They're saying he's going to be ready for week 1. This is just a PSA announcement that we got to keep an eye on that. And we're going to have a show next week where we'll give you an update on what we hear as a side note. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Cardinals looks like it's going to be clearly Mac Wilkerson as the Mike, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and then number 2 linebacker role, which hasn't been worth a darn for, I should say worth a darn, but hasn't been that great unless you're in the deepest of leagues to play the number 2 linebacker in Arizona. Going to the 49ers to wrap up linebackers, though, before we get into DBs next. Luke Gifford, Chaz Surratt, and Jalen Graham played the first 7 series, basically the entire first half of the 49ers. I saw Nick Martin on some special team stuff, so I'm like, I don't get this. So they sat out Warner, they sat out D. Winters, and then they started Gifford, Surratt, and Graham. Martin didn't come into the game until the second half started from a defensive perspective. He was really productive, but once again, he was going against folks who weren't going to make the Chargers 53, basically. Chaz Surratt, who played all those snaps before him. Now, Surratt also wore the green dot. He got released and he got picked up by the Seahawks, actually. I think they sent him to the 53, if I remember correctly. And the Seahawks needed that depth as a side note. But anyway, for those worried about Winters versus Martin, that kind of – now, it's a preseason game, Sean, but with that kind of disparity, it certainly feels like there's a big gap still between Winters and Martin, and you almost have to wonder if a Gifford or Graham is even ahead of Martin.
Yeah, I think Gifford's the number 3. Yeah, I thought this entire preseason it was Martin going against Gifford for that number 3 spot. I knew Winters was going to get at least a strong run to be the number 2, and he's taken off with it. It's a very productive role. We've seen in the years some very good linebacking duos for San Francisco here. And yeah, if Nick Martin's playing that late in the game against those type of players, then that shows he's not ready.
Yep. Johnny, Winters or Peyton Wilson, your local Pittsburgh guy?
Upside, I'll go Wilson, but stability, bankability, I'll go Winters. And I will say I'm a big Nick Martin guy, still am. I think he sideline to sideline speed, tackle ability is terrific. I think he'll eventually get his chance. It might even be this year. So I think D. Winters is the guy for right now, but I think in the future it will be Martin.
Yeah, Winters on the smaller side, and where Martin was struggling, reading some of the comments from Shanahan and Saleh, is that while he was playing with his hair on fire, it led to him taking some bad angles. which led to some bad tackling for him, which led to missed tackles and things along those lines, or just completely overrunning the play and not even have a chance to make the tackle. So I think with experience, Martin will eventually take over. I don't think it's this year, though, unless Winters gets hurt.
You could be right.
But for Dynasty, I am absolutely with you, Johnny. I am stashing Nick Martin for Dynasty. And if someone gives up on him because he's not starting and, say, there was a stab I shouldn't have taken, and for some reason dumps him or is willing to trade him for cheap, I'm all in on that.
That's right.
All righty. Let's move to defensive backs. And we're going strong, guys. Hang in there, everybody, guys and gals. We got a lot more content to cover with you. But before we hit on the defensive backs, I got to talk about IDP Plus. Great articles. I love the old man Randy Johnson's great articles that he writes as one example. We have great tools. We have great rankings. We have a great Discord channel where you get help from so many talented individuals, such as the two people joining me on this broadcast today, folks. I mentioned one of the tools earlier. There's great tools about, you want to see 1 through 100 at every position in terms of how they scored based on 3 different scoring systems you can choose from, or overall defensive positions. Or, by the way, those tools cover offense as well. It's a freaking awesome site, folks. Go check it out. IDP Plus. Sign up. Take advantage. Let the IDP Plus team lead you to a championship this year. All right, with that, let's move on to defensive backs and the Patriots. And holy cow. Big shocker here on August 29th. We already knew the issues when we talked about Kyle Duggar. Sean, way back to our broadcast when we did the top 9 and the repeat rates, and when we talked about safeties, Sean was all out on Kyle Duggar way back then. It has played out that way. Now, on top of that, Jabril Peppers gets released surprisingly on Friday, August 29th, with $4 million of dead money as a side note. So this wasn't cheap to let him go. It was interesting when Vrabel started Peppers next to Woodson in this Week 3 preseason game. His comment was he wanted to see how Peppers looked working next to Woodson. Well, he must have freaking hated it. Cut his ass. Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't been cursing on the show. Cut his butt. And all out of there. And then we had Duggar, who came in on the 5th series of Q2 of the second quarter, that is. And he and Marcus Epps played in the second half. Of course, Epps got released and is now on the Eagles practice squad, which is something to watch for down the road with the Eagles as a side note, as he used to play with the Eagles way back when. So we got this mess here. Sean, I'm going to start with you. Who's starting at safety? Because Duggar looked really good in the time that he played. Now, granted, he came in the 5th series and all, and one of the beat writers put it well, is that he looked like a starting safety, but he should have looked like a starting safety against his competition. Who's starting at safety? Is it Jalen Hawkins? Is it Craig Woodson? Is it Kyle Duggar? Is it somebody else? Which of those two is starting, Sean?
Yeah, so you were talking about the Discord channel. I've actually been sitting here talking with some folks in the Discord about these very players. So everybody wants to know. Right now, it looks like it's Hawkins and Woodson. It's Hawkins and Woodson. They've made it very clear that they are not on the Kyle Duggar train, and I don't think it's against him personally. It just seems to be a system issue where he's just not fitting the system, not to where like he's done something or said something wrong. Something about his skill set just doesn't fit what they want to do. So Jalen Hawkins looks to be the deep guy, and Woodson is the guy getting all the money snaps, up in the box, up in the slot. So if you're taking a shot on any of these guys, you're taking it on Woodson, I think.
Well, so it's interesting. So in the Diehards Dynasty League, which is probably my favorite Dynasty League that I'm in right now, and it has a lot of people from SiriusXM, and there's 2 copies of every player. There's 32 teams with offense and IDP in this really deep league. We have 45 players in the rosters, 5 taxi squad spots, and 8 injured reserve spots. So really deep league, okay? No kickers, no punters. But anyway, Craig Woodson wasn't on anybody's roster. Mike Dempsey, who some of you know from the Football Diehards show on SiriusXM, actually picked up Craig Woodson off of waivers today. So I went to do a quick check. Craig Woodson over the preseason played, according to PFF, shout out to PFF. I like to do that when I mention some of their stats. He played 24 box snaps, 10 slot snaps, but 45 deep snaps. So that of those snaps, he played 57% deep. I usually like a lower number than that when I'm looking at potential safety pickups. And Sean, I see you nodding your head with that. I'm not feeling great about any of these guys. Johnny, are you picking up any of these guys right now? If you're starting to draft tomorrow?
Heck no, no. It's just going to be whoever gets the long end of the stick. Week 2, week 3, we'll see. We'll feel it out. You know what? I don't want to give up on Duggar just yet, and I'm not going to have him to start him. But kind of like the Okereke take. I mean, if they had all these guys, all these options that are good options, sure, you could throw them to the wind. But at the same time, we know who Kyle Duggar is. He was penciled inside my top 12 as far as IDP defensive backs. We know what we're getting on the field. So I'm not completely writing him off just yet. I know it's not looking good for him. But at the same time, I'm a proponent of rookies coming in, and it's a tough position to learn. But nonetheless, we've seen some other rookies already get the nod. In Atlanta there, Xavier Watts is, free safety who's getting the nod too. I hate to get, sorry to go off tangent, but, I'm excited for these young guys too. So I don't really know much about Craig Woodson. Hopefully he's some kind of relative of Rod Woodson. That would be cool. But, probably not the case, but yeah, I'll be watching it nonetheless. Not interested in rostering or starting at least any of these guys week 1.
Well, Duggar has had up and down years because of injuries. So he's had some really good years, and he's had some not so good years because of injuries. And last year, of course, he was playing with the injury, and that certainly hurt his stats last year. So I'm with you, Johnny. I'm staying away from all three of them to start the year. There's other people I'd rather stash, quite frankly. And one of those we might be talking about here in a little bit as we move to the Dolphins. So they actually played their starters. And Micah Fitzpatrick started at safety as we expected. But for the first time, as he's been battling injuries and coming back from injuries, Ifeatu Melifonwu started next to him. Now, when he's been very injury prone throughout his career, but we saw a glimpse at the end of 2023 when he got a lot of playing time with the Lions and how productive he can be in tackles and sacks and so forth. Sean, how are we feeling about Melifonwu now that he gets started in that last preseason game? And where would you pick him? Safety 4 or potentially higher because of the upside?
You don't have to take him higher because he's going undrafted. You could take him as your very last pick if you'd like. I do like his upside. I do think this offense or defense is going to be on the field quite a bit. In some big passing situations too. So I like his potential to finish in the top 24. I think he just gets in there. And you can get him for nothing right now. He's sitting on your waiver wire.
Yeah. Now, I talked about Micah Fitzpatrick, and I love the way they used him. He only played one series, but where he was playing a lot of that single high safety in Pittsburgh, he played some slot. He played down in the box some. He did play a little. I think I had him down for one single high on the first drive. The rest was either too deep, slot, or slot/box. If they use him like that, do we have a return to relevance for Micah Fitzpatrick? Sean, I'm going to go to you again on the Dolphins here.
Yeah, if he's getting, like, say, those money, positions there, those snaps up there, that close to the line, yeah, you got to. He's still got his big playability. We just haven't seen it as much over the last several years. He started out the opposite. He was just a big play guy, not a lot of tackles. This dude's completely switched his game up. He's more of a tackle guy now and not so much the big plays. So with this Dolphins defense, as bad as it's looking to be, he's going to have every opportunity to cash in some big plays for us and rack up plenty of tackles. You're getting him at safety 2, 3. He's sliding down quite a bit himself. So you pick him up, you're getting a potential safety 1 here.
Right. So Sean is a Dolphins fan, and is part of the reason I went back to him on this one because he does follow the Dolphins quite a bit. Seeing how they used him versus how Pittsburgh was using him, I think there's a huge upside opportunity. And to your point, Sean, he's all about where he could end up. I'm seeing some drafts where he's going outside of the top 24 safeties.
Yeah.
And that could be a real steal for Micah Fitzpatrick.
He's barely getting drafted in some of these. He's not the last safety to go in these drafts, but he's far from the first. Very far from the
All
first.
right. So, folks, if you're getting late in your draft and you figure out who to round up your safety room with, keep an eye on Fitzpatrick. Once again, as Sean always likes to call out, you take a chance on some of these guys late, and after a couple of games, if they end up using him like they did at Pittsburgh, where you can cut him and it's not a huge loss, but huge upside opportunities when you're filling out that bench. Let's go to the Bills real quick. Cole Bishop played, Rapp didn't, and Hamlin didn't, or if he did, I did not see him when I was watching the game. So interesting that, of course, Rapp and Hamlin were the starters last year. Bishop was, in line to replace Hamlin. In fact, they waited very long in free agency before they finally re-signed Damar Hamlin. Bishop struggled in preseason week 2. That's part of the reason I feel like they put him in there. So when we get to week 1, Johnny, who's starting next to Taylor Rapp? Do you think it's going to be Bishop based on the plans all along? And you think that just because of the missed time, they needed to get him out there and get him some reps in preseason and get him, back in the groove of things? Or do you think they're going to go back to Damar Hamlin and we might be disappointed in Cole Bishop here for a while?
You know what? I had just done a podcast. I have, to answer your question, you know where I'm going, because I have Cole Bishop at 23 in my defensive back. So it is Cole Bishop for me. Now, the only thing that's what's keeping him, at 23 and not higher even, is the fact that, the health concerns. Is he healthy? Right. So, he doesn't really get much exposure there to the playbook. And they do have Damar Hamlin, who's capable. But I think they err on the case of upside here. I think they can do better things on the defense with Cole Bishop in there. And he's been an efficient tackler. On just 34% of snaps last season, he had 40 tackles. So let's just say, I know this isn't real life, but I like to do this in my head. When I'd see 34%, awfully close to a third, right? A little bit over a third. So let's just take that 40 and multiply it by 3. You're looking at 120 tackles. I'm not going to call that, right there. I probably will say Cole Bishop, I think he has the upside for 100-plus tackles, and that makes him a DB2 to me. So I think I'll take the upside here, Cole Bishop. And I'm actually, quite frankly, I've drafted him in many sleeper leagues that are, just strictly defensive back. And I'm glad this is jaded because, had it not been, of course, we're all going to like Cole Bishop when we hear he's the starter. So we're getting a little bit of, shield protection in front of Cole Bishop. And I'm still bullish on him.
I love Cole Bishop. I have drafted him in a couple of leagues as well. But before I put him in the lineup in week 1, I'm going to be watching some of the Bills beat writers after we finish our IDP start sit show, just to make sure in pregame that he's lining up with the starters next to Rapp.
I agree.
Just to be on the safe side for week 1 in particular.
Right.
All right, going to the Steelers and talking about oldies but goodies. Jalen freaking Ramsey, who on some of you that have been listening to this show have heard me talk about Jalen Ramsey with the trade to Pittsburgh, is going to return to top 10 relevancy at cornerback this year. Very, very confident so in that. And when I saw how he was used in the third preseason game, which is the first and only one that he played in. Now, Juan Thornhill didn't play because he was a little bit banged up, so Chuck Clark was in there. We'll talk about Chuck Clark a little bit later. But it was Elliott and Ramsey and Chuck Clark all playing on the first playing on the first series. Jalen Ramsey played all over. Played in the box. He played in the slot. He did have a snap where he played deep. It was a long drive that he was in for. I never saw him at outside cornerback. He had a beautiful tackle for loss, which unfortunately he also got a unnecessary roughness penalty on. And he also blitzed on another play as well from the slot. I love Jalen Ramsey as a top 10 cornerback. Sean, am I too excited about Jalen Ramsey?
You're very excited about Jalen Ramsey. It does concern me a bit how excited you are about it, given your past hate for the Steelers as a organization. So
Don't say that. Johnny, man.
He doesn't
Johnny,
know. I'm letting him know.
Yeah.
Ricky told me in Canton.
And that was at the Fantasy Football Expo event, which was a fantastic event, folks. Start planning for it next year. It's going to be in late July as opposed to in early August next year. Check out the Fantasy Football Expo website for more details. Sorry, Sean, with that, I want to put that quick plug in. Now back to Jalen Ramsey.
I mean, he's as good of an option as anybody at cornerback, and he's not the first one being taken. So you're getting, in Ricky's eyes, the number one cornerback for fantasy. You can get him probably as a 15 to 18 range.
Now I did say top 10. I didn't say number one. You like to put
No,
words in
no,
there.
no.
I've noticed that today.
I heard what I heard.
So, so do you feel like he can finish as a number one cornerback, a top 12 cornerback?
Yeah, absolutely. If he's getting that kind of usage, he's practically a third safety right now, slash linebacker, slash nickel, slash whatever you want to call him, star role. Yeah, not playing outside, keeping him down near the line of scrimmage. The ball, the plays, everything that gives him the big tackle opportunities we want. We've seen him get interceptions in the past. As long as he's healthy, yeah, should be productive.
You hit on my one concern is the health thing, and he's played that star role with the Jags. He's played it with the Rams, and he was super uber productive. Hasn't always been used that way in other spots, like in Miami.
Right.
They had to put him on the outside as an example. Huge upside, in my opinion, for that. I said I'd come back to Chuck Clark. Just want to be clear. Elliott and Thornhill are the starting safeties for the Steelers.
Yeah.
That is pretty clear. In fact, Chuck Clark got cut and re-signed. Now, I think some of that was because he was a veteran, he wasn't subject to waivers. They said, hey, we're going to cut you, but we can re-sign you so we could do some roster gyrations here with the 53 and injured reserve slots and all. But Chuck Clark, if Elliott or Thornhill gets hurt, are we liking Chuck Clark, Sean?
I do. I still remember what he did in Baltimore. And, he wasn't overly terrible in New York. He was coming back from injuries and in a weird 4-man safety rotation there. He can still be productive. But I'm not drafting him. I'm waiting for an injury to occur. And, if it's that week I need one, then I'll pick him up for sure, yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's move to the Jaguars. And after preseason week 2, there was such a rotation at safety. It wasn't clear on who was going to start. And then week 3, they all sat out. But it looks like from some reports I'm hearing that Andrew Wingard is going to be starting next to Eric Murray. Johnny, any love for Andrew Wingard or Eric Murray? I'm guessing neither one's in your top 24.
Neither in my top 24. But yeah, Andrew Wingard. I mean, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I do know that once upon a time, a few years ago, he was a banger when it came to defensive back safety position, and that's what I'm targeting when I'm looking at the safeties. Is not really the big splash play. If you can call sacks, if you can call interceptions, you should be on ESPN. I give you a lot of credit, but you can gauge the tackles a little bit easier. And Andrew Wingard is that type of player, so definitely the guy I'm hunting out of those two.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm rather with him. Everything I've seen also points to Wingard being the second guy. Johnny's right. We've seen in the past where he just racked up tackles. And he's a lot of fun on that team. If you ever get a chance to watch the Jaguars, he's a fun player to watch.
All right, so Wingard or Murray? Johnny?
Wingard.
Sean?
Same.
Interesting. Now, Murray's been a journeyman, but they signed him for 3 years and $21 million. But he was playing a little bit more free safety, so something to watch, which could be good for Wingard as well. So you're rounding out your safety room in a draft, and you're in the last round. Fitzpatrick or Wingard? Johnny?
I'll go Wingard.
Sean?
I think I'll take Fitzpatrick here, just because I do feel he's got a better situation to keep his role, whereas the Jaguars could do something stupid and take him out. That's
a slight difference for me. With all that rotation that they did in week 2, it leads me to believe that Wingard could be on a little bit of a shorter leash, whereas Fitzpatrick wouldn't be. So I have Fitzpatrick ahead of Wingard in that one, but it's fairly close if Wingard can keep that role.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the Chiefs. Boy, we talked about it last week, Sean and I did, Johnny, and Jaden Hicks, who we both have a real love for. The problem is he's not playing 100% of the snaps. The first series in that first preseason game, he did play 100% of the snaps along with Brian Cook and Chamari Connor. Second series, 71%. Third series, 64%. once again per PFF. Shout out to PFF. So Hick made some nice open field tackles too, which were difficult to make. On the broadcast, they were talking about, they were giving him rave reviews. They're talking about he's going to be the Justin Reed replacement. Well, Justin Reed didn't play 71% and 64% of snaps. So that's hard to justify. Now, Connor did get banged up a bit. Haven't seen any reports since on him. So I don't know if it's anything serious. So we have to watch that injury. And if he is out, that could be good news for Hicks. But then there's also this other discussion at cornerbacks with now Fulton active, that it could be Fulton and Watson on the outside with McDuffie in the slot, which could push Connor and Cook into full-time safety positions. So there's a lot of risk here with Jaden Hicks. Sean, I'm going to you first, and then we'll come to Johnny afterwards on Hicks. How are you feeling with Hicks after all that stuff I just talked about and what we're seeing on the field and the usage?
Yeah, I can't draft him where I was drafting, which I wasn't taking him high anyway because he was sliding down as a top 30. Yeah, about 30-ish is where he was going there. He was starting to climb up some before all this, best came about. I still think he ends up being by the end of the season, he will be the top scoring safety for the Chiefs. I think it ends up that way. I do not think it starts out that way.
Interesting. Okay, so more the back half of the year,
I think they'll have to. I think he's that good of a playmaker, both in his ball hawk abilities. His tackling he looked like a really good hitter coming out of college too. So that's why I was high on him coming out of college. He looks like the perfect slot guy for Spagnuolo. For whatever reason, he hates us and doesn't want to put him in there.
Johnny, is Hicks going to disappoint us all year? Or are you on board with Sean that as the year progresses, he's going to take over for either Cook or Connor in that safety spot and play 100% of the snaps as the year progresses?
I don't know about 100%, but I do think he'll be the full-time guy, 90-something. So I do think as the season progresses, and that kind of, like we said before, like gives it a discounted price now. So if you're in a deep best ball and you see him, going into the forward, DB fours. Yeah, I think you can take a shot on him there. But, I've kind of had this in my mind too. I understand they're different players, and I'll come back to you, Ricky and Sean. Maybe you guys can answer my question too. But, I mean, we're thinking he's going to be this Eric Reed player. Was Eric Reed really that good for fantasy? I mean, the last 3-4 seasons with Kansas City, not over 100 tackles any of those seasons. So, I mean, is the role like that juicy? And my question, you might, tag on that too. But my question is, I do believe, like how you said Hicks was a banger coming out of college. I mean, that's not a surprise because I was looking through the preseason stats. I didn't watch the games, but I did see the stats. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Hicks had, in a preseason game, one of those 3 games, 4 or 5 tackles.
Yeah, it's impressive. Player, man.
So, I mean, they're different players, but what's your guys' take on that?
So you're not allowed to ask the questions. I am. That's how I answer your question. I ask the questions.
Too comfortable.
So here's what I tell you. When Eric Reed was playing, Steve Spagnuolo wasn't the defensive coordinator. And so at least I'm almost certain he wasn't. And because that was many years ago. And so different schemes, different systems and all. So I don't think we can compare to that back then.
I think it's Justin Reed.
Justin Reed. Sorry, Justin Reed.
Oh, okay. Got it. But yeah, so anyway, it's a fair point, but Hicks is to me a different player that for whatever the broadcaster is saying. Hicks is a different type of player from Justin Reed. And I love his tackling capability, and I think he can be successful, but he's got to get the playing time. Sean?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like what Reed did. Reed was solid there. Tackles, threw in some sacks, threw in some interceptions. I thought Hicks could excel if he was given that full-time spot and was given similar usage. I thought he could he could double his interceptions, he could match the sacks, and get more tackles. I just feel like he's so versatile in that backfield that he should be the guy, and for whatever reason, we're not getting that.
All right. Let's move on here, and we're going to move to some NFC teams here, and let's talk about the Packers here real quick. So Nate Hobbs missed week 3 with an injury, and he missed previous preseason games as well. So it's hard to get clarity about how the Packers are going to use their secondary, but it certainly looks like with Hobbs out, let me rephrase that. Not only looks like it was, Nixon and Valentine on the outside, Bullard in the slot, McKinney and Williams as your safeties. Now, the risk is what I shouldn't say the risk, but the question is what happens when Hobbs comes back? Do they play him in the slot? Do they leave him on the outside? Do they move Nixon into the slot? Does he just replace Valentine completely? And does Bullard play in the slot? Sean, what's your crystal ball saying?
I have no idea. No idea.
Oh, man, shine that crystal ball. Johnny, what's your crystal ball saying?
I think, familiarity-wise, Keyshawn Nixon could move to the slot. I mean, he's a very productive cornerback, had a great, when talking about, especially if you're in return yard leagues. I think one of my leagues, Keyshawn Nixon was a top 3 or top 5 defensive back last year. So familiarity in the position, I hope that's what happens with Keyshawn Nixon because he's a kind of a cheat code as a defensive back in those return yard leagues. But yeah, I mean, I don't have my crystal ball shined either, as far as the cornerback alignment. I know that Jair Alexander loss of him was bumping Keyshawn Nixon out, but now with Hobbs, I'm not sure how it's going to look out. But hopefully for IDP, Keyshawn Nixon goes back into the slot. And I think that even if he is on the outside, he can still be a productive cornerback for IDP.
I think Nixon can still be productive outside, and it will be Bullard on the inside unless an injury occurs in the safety. And then I think Bullard will jump to fill in whatever safety role that is, and I have no idea who kicks inside at that point. If it's going to be Hobbs, Nixon, Valentine, I have no idea what they're doing there.
Yeah. So my crystal ball, in fairness to y'all, so I got to, I tested y'all, so I can tell you, my crystal ball says Hobbs or Bullard starts in the slot, particularly with some of the missed time that Hobbs had during the preseason. So I do start to think Valentine and Nixon starts on the outside. I don't think Nixon is going to get that much slot playing time. I think it'll be occasional. But I think if you're drafting Nixon with hoping for last year's numbers, I think you're going to be disappointed.
Sure.
I think he'll be one of the cornerbacks that maybe stays in the top 24. But I think the outside usage and after his complaining, it'll be really interesting to see. To Johnny's point, it's a great point about the return yards as a cheat code. But after he made his comments about number one cornerbacks, don't return, aren't on returns kind of thing, will they recognize that and will they say, hey, he is too valuable as our number one cornerback now to put on returns as well? So that it'll be really interesting to see. But regardless, I think where Nixon is being drafted in most of the drafts that I've seen, it's higher than I'm willing to go after him because I think the slot, there's a risk of him not playing in the slot and the risk of him losing on a return yardage.
Yeah, I think Bullard does play the slot. I forgot about him, non-factor.
Yeah. All righty, let's go to the Vikings. Harrison Smith, it came out today that he's dealing with some personal health issues that they're going to check on a week-to-week basis. Didn't say he wouldn't play in week 1, but that's all we got out of the report so far. The other thing that's of interest to the Vikings is they're treating Theo Jackson. They keep on referring to him as a backup that they have confidence in. Last I saw last year, Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus and Cam Bynum all played 90+% of the snaps, and Theo Jackson is who they signed to an extension, a 3-year extension, is moving to that Cam Bynum role. So a couple of things. One is I don't think we can trust Harrison Smith without knowing more about this health issue, not to mention he's 36 years old. But what does this do for Metellus and Theo Jackson in your mind, Sean, in terms of are you moving Metellus up any higher than where you have him? Are you moving up Theo Jackson or no changes for either one?
I think Metellus stays where he's at. I mean, he's got a pretty solid role as more that LB2 slot, corner, nickel, do everything there in the middle. And Jackson, I don't know if he will take the Harrison Smith role or somebody else will fill that role in.
The number 4 safety is Jay Ward from LSU as a side note. But go on.
You're the only one that knows that. I think Jackson should go up in your rankings. I was already off of Harrison Smith, mostly due to age. And I can't say I've seen any of them drafted outside of Metellus. So as far as fantasy goes, it sounds like everybody's free right now, unless you're just in a ridiculously crazy league, which I should be drafting those tomorrow. So I'll let you know after that. But
All right.
yeah, Theo Jackson, I think, is worth a shot later in the drafts because he's totally overlooked right now. Being in that Cam Bynum role kind of puts him a little deeper, so he's not up there with all the snaps that we really like. So, but if Harrison Smith's going to be out, yeah, we could see him maybe catching some of those extra tackles, maybe a little closer to the line too. So,
Yeah, I think he's someone we go after in our deeper leagues as once again
yeah,
filling out the safety room as an option kind of thing. Johnny, let's talk about the Panthers here. Trevin Moehrig, who they signed in free agency from the Raiders. I'm guessing you have him in your top 24, but I'm more interested to talk about the number 2 safety right now with the Panthers. Nick Scott, shockingly, surprisingly, can't believe it, is the starting safety next to Moehrig going into the year. He's ahead of Damani Richardson, who was starting late last year. He's ahead of Lathan Ransom, the Ohio State rookie who they drafted in the 4th round. So, are you willing to take a chance on Nick Scott, Johnny?
Absolutely not. I think this is coach speak. I mean, I could see it where Nick Scott
Don't
played.
hold back. Tell us what you're really
yeah,
thinking, Johnny.
I think this could be a case where Nick Scott plays 85% of the snaps for a week or two, and then there's going to be a change made. My prediction all offseason was Damani Richardson was going to be the guy. You know, I wasn't really looking too far into Lathan Ransom, and the numbers just had me, just popped out to me. I mean, week 5, Damani Richardson, 100% of snaps, 11 tackles. Week 6, 100% of snaps, 12 tackles. Week 12, 100% of snaps, 6 tackles. 13, same thing, 9 tackles. Last week, the Damani Richardson played as a full-time starter. 94% of snaps, 10 tackles. So to me, that's juicy. I can't overlook that. Damani Richardson, I had him in my top 25. But now with the Lathan Ransom ascending too, doing well, and seems like less beat writers, less blurbs about Damani Richardson and more about Ransom. So both just are on my watch list at this point. If I'm drafting 5 defensive backs, yeah, sure, I'll take a chance. Probably at this point, Lathan Ransom over Damani Richardson. But I think when we talk about tackles, I think if Damani Richardson gets a chance, he's actually the better fantasy guy as far as straight tackling. Now, if I'm running this team on Madden, Trayvon Moehrig was never there, and I'm starting both the young guys, Ransom and Damani
Richardson. Hey, this isn't Madden. This is real stuff. This is fantasy football.
yeah, this is real fake football.
All right, let's go to the Falcons here. So I noted, as I was typing up my notes, really, as we're getting ready for the show and on, we prepare as we go through this stuff. Saw that Jordan Fuller was released. And I typed Jordan Fuller released. Good news for Xavier Watts. Then I before I saw Raheem Morris's comments, I saw Jordan Fuller resigning. Like crap, this might have been one of those, kind of roster gyration things like we talked about earlier with Chuck Clark that they just talked to him kind of thing. But then the good news is Raheem Morris comes out and says that Xavier Watts is going to be our starting safety next to the great Jesse Bates. Does that push Xavier Watts into your top 24, Sean?
Oh, I think so. I do think so. I've been high on Xavier Watts. I thought it would take a little longer for him to crack the starting role. Even though it was just Jordan Fuller in front of him, I really didn't expect them to just give him, the start role week 1. So that's fantastic news. He's got a great partner on the other side with Jesse Bates to help him out too. So I'm excited for this, if I'm being honest. He wasn't the only rookie to get a starting role with these guys.
Yep, exactly. And so that's exactly where I'm going next. So, boom, we are in sync, man. So, D. Alford, I'm watching the game. I saw him playing the first series, saw him playing the second series, saw him with a punt return in the mid-second quarter. And, of course, the Falcons' depth chart still had Alford as the starting slot cornerback. And as we talked about earlier, sometimes it's not what they, you got to watch what they do and not what they say kind of thing. And sure enough, when you see that kind of usage in week 3 of the preseason and a lot of the other starters out, tells you something. And lo and behold, Raheem Morris also announced that Billy Bowman Jr., the rookie out of Oklahoma, is going to start the year in the slot. We saw Alfred have some good scoring weeks when they played the right teams and the right matchups that had a lot of three wide, and he was on the field quite a bit. Johnny, how you feeling about Billy Bowman with all that news?
I'll take the upside. I'm not really eyeing up the other guys, and I'm not really a cornerback specific guy. So I'll defer this one to Sean.
All right, Sean?
I mean, it's great for Bowman. He's a safety, or safety eligibility. So if you're in a position specific type of league where it's not just generalized as defensive back, it's not the greatest designation here. Now, if it was the opposite, if he was a quarterback playing a strong safety role up in the box, cheat code. This is the opposite of that. Still not terrible. It can be very productive. I'm probably not picking him up just yet. I want to see if that position is still productive throughout the year. Just how many snaps he's going to get, probably 70, 80 range. And if he can turn in the type of production D. Alfred was getting, then yeah, I'll probably pick him up if I really need the help with safety.
You hit on the key points that I wanted our audience to take away, Sean. Excellent job. That's why you're one of the IDP gurus, in particular when it comes to cornerbacks and stuff.
Took me nearly 2 hours to get one right.
What is that? Billy Bowman has, it's mostly safety eligibility because that's what he paid in college. So most of the platforms, I don't think I've seen any platform that has him listed as a cornerback. So that's part one. And part two is you hit it. If it's a safety playing as a cornerback, not so good. If it's a cornerback playing as a safety, though, and that's when it's good for us. And that's just not the case with Bowman. He's on the bad side of that. So anyway, all right. So that's the scoop on Bowman. We're probably not picking him up, folks. Okay. Just one quick point I want to make on the Saints. Isaac Yiadom, and I always have trouble saying his last name. Yiadom.
Adam. Like Adam.
They actually said it a little bit different on the broadcast, so that's why I'm a little bit thrown off. So that's what I usually. Four tackles very early in the game against the Broncos. He's going to be the Saints starting cornerback across from Kool-Aid McKinstry. He may get replaced by Quincy Riley, but there's a little bit of Jalen Jones to him from the Colts last year. What did we love about Jalen Jones, and why did he finish the top 12 cornerback? There was nobody better than him to take his place on the field, but he was bad enough that he got targeted constantly. That could be Isaac Yiadom, however you say his name, this year. So just something to keep an eye on for those that require cornerbacks. All right. Last defensive back group, we're going to talk about the 49ers. Jason Pinnock, who's likely to play the deep safety role primarily, was injured, did not play. Marcus Siegel and Jair Brown, the former number 2 second-round draft pick from Penn State. Jair Brown, Marcus Siegel, drafted a little bit later, I believe it was the 5th round this year, rookie. One of those two are going to start next to Pinnock. Richie Grant, by the way, got released today. Don't know why they signed him if he couldn't start for the Falcons. I mean, come on, really? But anyway, I digress. Who's going to start? Johnny, is it going to be Marquise Siegel or is it going to be Jair Brown? Who's going to start next to Jason Pinnock week 1?
I'm going to say Siegel is drafting. Actually, this is an important question because I have a sleeper draft where we're on like DB5, and I'm going to take Siegel over Jair Brown.
I hope none of your fellow drafters are listening to this. I'll snipe him from you. Sean, you agree with that take?
Yeah, it's all signs seems to be pointing that the Browns the odd man out here. It's a productive spot.
I agree, and it's a very productive spot. So while I talked about the Andrew Wingard pickup, not Andrew Wingard, Craig Woodson pickup earlier and all, Woodson or Siegel, who are you picking up?
Siegel.
Johnny?
Yeah, I'll probably take Siegel too. Less competition.
I think I'm with you guys as well. Now, Mustafa is going to be coming back from injured reserve in the middle of the year. Does Siegel hold him off? And does Mustafa replace Pinnock or does he replace Siegel? Sean?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That's why I do my job, man.
Yeah. We'll worry about that later in the season. It's just defensive backs. I'm not worried. If one comes back, loses his job, you just got to pick up another one.
Fair enough. There's a lot of safeties out there and cornerbacks. You're right. All right, that concludes DBs. We just have a few defensive line stuff we want to talk about. Before we do, I want to put in a plug for the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. If you haven't done your draft yet, go to Amazon.com. Probably didn't need to add the .com part. And grab the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide by Bob Lung, who also runs the Fantasy Football Expo. Bob has had great success through the years, and a lot of his people that have purchased his guides have, in terms of winning, because it takes out the outliers. The wide receiver who might have one great week and score 32 points because he got 2 touchdowns and 140 yards, and the next week gives you next 2 or 3 weeks gives you 3 duds. So you get 1 win from that one and then 3 losses from it. Bob looks through all the consistency players and gives you the formula to get that consistency week after week to lead you to your playoffs and your championships. So check out the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide on Amazon. All right, just a few defensive lines to hit. And once again, we're going to start with the Patriots. Guess who's starting across from Harold Landry for the Patriots as we go into week 1?
I just found this out yesterday, actually. It is not Keon White like I thought.
It's not Keon White and it's not Anthony Jennings. Who is it, Sean?
Chason.
Caleb Von Chason from
there you go.
LSU.
Yeah, LSU or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So Caleb Von, who had finished the year really strongly with the Raiders, and it was surprising the Raiders didn't make a stronger effort to re-sign him as well as he played. Now, granted, they had Kuntz coming back from injury, Crosby, of course, etc., and Tyree Wilson as well. But the Patriots scooped him up based on what he did, and he has outplayed Keon White and Anthony Jennings. In fact, a Keon White side note, Patriots sat out a lot of folks. We talked about a few that they did play, like Woodson and Peppers and Duggar, and we see how that's working out for those guys. But a lot of the regular starters, the Spillanes, the Christian Ellises, the Barmores, Milt Williams, none of those guys played. Keon White started. I saw him as far as the 5th series, and he was playing on the edge. He played 30 snaps. Vrabel's comments afterwards, he had things to work on. Anthony Jennings, also in the previous week, played late into the game as well. So he's probably at best their number 4 edge. Keon White looks like number 3. Caleb Chason, who in a lot of the practices, including a joint practice, has looked really, really good. Just want our audience to be aware that he could be quite the surprise as we go into this year. And it's not just because it's LSU, guys. Okay, I like to mention my LSU, but I work hard to not let it bias me. Okay, Steelers. Derek Harmon, the first-round draft pick, who was going to be starting across from Cameron Haywood with Benton Middle. Hurts his knee, had to be carted off, had the towel over his head. It looked like, oh, crud, he's going to be out for the whole year. The good news is they're estimating about 4 weeks. Wasn't clear if it was 4 weeks of the season or 4 weeks in total. They didn't put him on injured reserve. So he's a rookie with some upside, but just stay away from him given that injury. There was a late-round draft pick as we go to the Ravens by the name of Aeneas Peoples out of, I believe it was Virginia Tech, if I remember correctly, who won the 6th round, who made the 53 straight out of training camp and is one of the top 5 defensive linemen for the Ravens. With John Jenkins, the wily old John Jenkins is one of the 4 that would be theoretically ahead of him right now. If there's an injury, just a name to keep in mind. Tyree Wilson with the Raiders. He's not starting. It was Kuntz and Crosby starting. He rotated in quite a bit on a defensive tackle and played some snaps there, except for very, 1st and 10 kind of things. He looked really good and much more explosive off the ball than last year. Tyree Wilson is just someone not to pick up right now, but just to keep an eye on, folks. Last group we're going to talk about, the Cardinals. There's been some thinning of the defensive tackle ranks because of injuries. And earlier in some of the earlier shows, Sean and I were staying away from the Cardinals defensive tackles because they had so many of them. But Bilo Nichols, Walter Nolan, Justin Jones, all of them not available the first 4 weeks. Sean, does this interest you any more in Calais Campbell, Darius Robinson, or Dalvin Tomlinson for defensive tackle required leagues?
It would have to be a super deep league where we have to start at least 2, and maybe I need 3 on my team. I might take a shot at one of them. coin toss as to which one I want. It's between Campbell and Tomlinson for me. Campbell didn't look bad for the Dolphins last year, but Tomlinson has been known to give me enough tackles to not lose me a week, so I do like that. I'd probably take Tomlinson.
Interesting. Johnny, any take on that, buddy?
Robinson from is this the Cardinals? Darius Robinson?
Yeah, Darius Robinson, the number 1 draft pick last year, who missed most of the year with injury.
Yeah.
But he's good.
Take the upside. Won't give up on him just yet.
Okay. All right. Very good. So once again, very, very deep leagues. And once again, you will have to be careful because we'll come week 5. We might see Walter Nolan, Justin Jones, Byron Nichols, some of these coming back and making rotation. So maybe for a week, if depending on how week 1 or week 2 looks, maybe someone, if you get into injury situation, week 3, week 4, but something that, just something I wanted our audience to be aware of. All righty. After 2 hours and 5 minutes, and we're going to start wrapping things up here. We have made it through the week 3 preseason notes and the roster cuts and the 53-man implications and the Micah Parsons trade. And hopefully we gave you some fantastic content. And even if you couldn't listen to all 2 hours plus at this point in time, hopefully you broke it up while you're doing your exercising or while you're in the shower with a speaker radio or on your commutes to and from work or while you're working because you're bored of work because you hate your job. Hopefully we gave you some great info here, folks. So we will do another show. Sean and I will be back with you early next week. We will do a show for you for anything else we pick up as we're heading into the start of real football next Thursday night. It's finally here. Week 1 will be starting. So we will bring you the latest news and notes and nuggets right before that all starts out so you can start your starting lineups and maybe some last minute waiver changes. Also, mark your calendars for Sunday, September 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. Sean and I, and hopefully Michael Sicoli will be back to do the weekly start-sit show. We will do IDP and offense. So we're not biased toward either one. We want to help you set those lineups. And there's always a lot of questions week 1, and we will give you our best thoughts on that. Come join us on week 1 for the Start Sit Show, and we'll be doing it every week. And I did say Start Sit Show, not Start Whatever Show. I did not blend those. Okay, as the season starts, I'll be returning with the IDP Plus Advice Show as well, discussing key surprises in playing time, snap counts, injuries, waiver implications, who to chase and who not to chase in waivers, etc. For those of y'all that caught that in the last half of last year, I hope you enjoyed it and hope you'll be back for that as well. All righty. If you have any questions or comments that you want to make about the show, go to the IDP Plus YouTube channel. Go to this show, type them in, just like Jason O'Neill did, Rich775, Check Ray's Bluff, Ryan Correa, Raymond Phillips, C. Crumb, JT the Juice Man, and so many more did. Sean and I will get back to you. Johnny has done it on a previous show, actually, as well. So a lot of people commenting. We're answering your questions directly. A lot of good feedback to give us to continue to improve the show as well. Okay, Sean, any final comments related to the show? Anything else you want to get out there for our audience?
Just remember, these first few weeks, don't panic. If some of these guys start out slow, don't panic. Sell your team. Just keep keep an eye on some of these last minute changes too. So good luck, everyone.
Yeah, good luck. And Johnny, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you as well, buddy, and tell them about your show that they can also find on the IDP Plus YouTube channel.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter. I fly under the name Johnny Freakin' Fantasy. You can type that in on Twitter. You'll find me there, or at Johnny Freakin' F1. This season, I will be doing a in-season IDP waiver wire show. I will also be doing with our new bets channel. I will be doing tackle props. I look at DraftKings, other sites, and look at their tackle props. Take the over and under, and I'll give my justification why. And also check out the 2 most recent videos I just uploaded, and that is with the IDP Plus podcast, and those are top 24 defensive backs and linebackers at both positions. So give me a follow, and pleasure to be on with you guys. It was a great show. You guys go deep with it, so you're giving your followers and listeners very great information here. So.
Thank you.
Proud to be a part
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnny. I was glad to have you with us this week. It certainly was, man. We appreciate all the insights you brought as well. All right, everybody, if you like this show, give it a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Give me a follow at Ricky Rod 66, Sean at 8386, and you just heard how to follow Johnny on X as well. You can, of course, catch a replay of this and all our other previous shows on the IDP Plus YouTube channel under IDP Plus Advice. Sean and I, like I said, will be back with you again in less than a week. On behalf of Sean Teague and our special guest, Johnny Christoffi, this is Ricky Rodrigue wishing you, your family, and your friends great health and happiness. Be kind to one another. We're out of here, and we'll catch you in about 4 or 5 more days. Be on the lookout for it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.